Recognized for 4 minutes.
I thank the gentleman from Pennsylvania for his amendment. But more than that, I should say I thank the gentleman for addressing this larger issue of CRAs for a number of months. I claim time in opposition just on the amendment because I think we can probably work this out in a different way. Gentleman and I worked for a long time trying to address the issue of credit rating agencies because both of us realized that when you lay out the reasons why we are in this financial mess that we're in right now, we may disagree on this point or that point as to exactly how we got here. But both of us, I believe, came to the conclusions that CRAs played a huge, huge part to bring us to where we are today with this financial mess. And the reason it did was because so many people failed to exercise what we would call proper market discipline when they made their investments, whether that was a small investor, a middle-sized investor, or even the so-called knowledgeable investors on Wall Street failed to use what in normal times they would inherently have inside of them to say, what is the proper decision-making that I should make before I make this investment or that investment? What risks should I take here or there? And why was that, though, is the question. Well, we looked at a whole bunch of things, and we tried to come up with changes to the regulations of the CRAs, the credit rating agencies, and we made a lot of changes that were improvements. But I think we came down to one point is that there was too much reliance upon credit rating agencies. Just because the CRA came out and said that this particular security or this particular financial product was rated AAA, regardless of what was actually in the package, regardless of the fact maybe it was just a compilation of subprime mortgages with no likelihood whatsoever that they would ever be paid off, they got the AAA seal of approval and people invested in it, and of course the rest is history. When we look at it, one of the reasons why we think they got the seal of approval and then why investors looked at that and said that was okay was because they had the seal of approval from the federal government. They were listed as, these CRAs were listed as NRSROs, nationally recognized statistical rating organizations. So the investor, large or small, sophisticated or not, said, well, if the federal government is going to put its imprimatur on these organizations, on these CRAs, by saying that they are nationally recognized, if the federal government is going to put its stamp of approval, let's say their good housekeeping seal of approval on these entities, then they must be okay. And their decisions that they're making must be okay. And so that's what led to their decisions. And that's why, in committee, Ranking Member Bacchus proposed a change to this. He changed it to nationally recognized to nationally registered, merely that these entities were registered. No seal of approval, no stamp of the good housekeeping seal of approval, just that they had gone through the motions and had simply registered with the government as being nationally registered statistical rating organization. And that is why I think it made good sense to take away that seal of approval, and that is why also I believe that this legislation, this amendment in committee, passed in a bipartisan manner out of committee. Now I recognize that I'm actually on the floor now, oddly enough, defending the actions of the committee here to a change, and I understand the potential problems, but I would suggest that perhaps other things could be done other than just stripping this out and going back to the way it was before. I would suggest that we leave it as nationally registered statistical rating organizations, and as we go forward through the process, if we find the maybe it's minutia, maybe it's not, as far as some of states' regulations or other federal regulations that refer to this, I bet you there is another simpler way to I bet you there's a better, simpler way to just correspond this back for existing contracts and what have you. And I would look forward with working with the chairman and the other committee chairman to solve those problems in the future.
For the gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Madam Chairman, I yield such time as he may require to the
gentleman from
chairman of the
Massachusetts is recognized.
Well, first, I would say to my friend from New Jersey, I very much agree with what he said about credit rating agencies. I do, for the record, would like to make an assertion that I know he agrees with, that when he talked about our agreement on the CRAs and the role of the CRAs, we are talking about the credit rating agencies, not the Community Reinvestment Act, the other CRA with which we deal. And sometimes people don't pay full attention, so I don't want to get anybody too agitated. Yes, he's exactly right. He and I, in fact, collaborated on the legislation to remove the statutory assertion. And I think he's also correct. we fully agree. I think there's virtual unanimity on our committee with the purpose he articulated, telling the average investor, pay attention on your own. Don't rely on the rating agencies. Don't subcontract your judgment to them. Frankly, I am frustrated. I would hope that people out in the economy would take advantage of the full legal rights they have to create some buy-side rating agencies. I think that would be very helpful. We checked. There were no obstacles to doing it. I know there's some. I had some frustration that we weren't able to do more. I think we have done as much as anybody could think of. I've seen some newspaper articles that said, why didn't you do more? But they were, not surprisingly, absent of any suggestion. So, yeah, I think it would be better if we had buy-side rating agencies. In the interim, we have at least told people, use your own judgment. But as the gentleman acknowledged, and I think we can work this out, going forward, the problem we got was from a number of states and private institutions that have embedded in their statutes the old language. And I am pleased the gentleman said, let's work together. I think it would mean meeting with various of the state agencies and the pension funds to see if there was some legislative fix we could adopt, short of going back to the old name, because I agree with him as to the purpose of changing the name so that we can alleviate this problem there. So with that, I would be willing to say there's no need for the amendment, given that we have an agreement. We'll ask our hardworking and very creative staffs that can often work very well together to meet with those who have raised this issue with us to see if there's something else we could do that would meet their concerns so they wouldn't have to all amend their statutes, etc. And with that, I think we have come to a conceptual agreement, and as often the case, we, the members, will come to a conceptual agreement, and the staff will do all the hard work of making it a reality.
Does the gentleman reserve?
I do.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized. The gentleman has 1 minute remaining.
Right, and do they have other? Do you have other speakers?
No.
No. So then,
The gentleman from New Jersey has the right to close.
So I'll close now. Then, do you have any other time?
We'll yield back our time and ask for a vote.
Gentleman yields. The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Well, I appreciate the chairman's comments and look forward to seeing how this can be dealt with once, if this bill finally eventually does pass and goes through over to the Senate and into the conference. And you're right, we're not talking...
The gentleman yield?
Yeah, sure.
I would just say, no one can dictate to anyone, but if there were to be a no on the voice vote, I think that would be a reasonable end to this particular discussion, and we could then continue it on the level we talked about.
No. Okay. With that comment, and also with the understanding that we're not talking about the other CRA, although if we could make a, but you see, put that as being a cause. No, I guess we can't do that. That's a bridge too far. Okay. Okay. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Pennsylvania. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. It is now in order to consider amendment number 19, printed in House Report 111-370. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise?
I rise as the designee for the gentleman from Michigan,